Streaming. Here we go. I have to mute it one second. Streaming. Here we go. I have to mute it one second. Oh, geez. Okay. I'm so confused. I always get confused. Okay. Oh. Streaming. Okay, here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm pleased to get to speak with and to have met Kennedy Knowles in Cannes.
Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Woo.
She's one of my favorite parts of Cannes. I can't pronounce. I'm still like Cannes. Like I have
such. Cannes. It feels like it shouldn't be. It feels like that's like how Marge would say it in Minnesota, but it is. It's Cannes.
Yeah, I'm always like Cannes. So
there might be like a that is lost on me as an American, but
right. Cannes. I don't know.
Yeah. With an accent, it might be. With an accent different than my accent, it might be better.
Right. So I'm so excited to be speaking with you. We met in Cannes, and I just loved your energy. And
Aww.
yeah, you're just so joyful and just like I loved your gowns. I just loved your energy and wanted to know more about you. And then I asked you about doing this podcast, and I mentioned that I would like to talk about metaphysical stuff and comedy and interview somebody who I find interesting. And you had said that you had something that you wanted to talk about via metaphysical stuff. Or somebody that you knew. I don't remember who it was, but I want.
Yes. I always want to talk about everything. And first of all, I'm so happy to be here because I feel the same way about you, Jackie. I love your energy and having you there at Cannes and just the joy, because when you're in a fancy place like that, it's important to be around people who can get into it, but also don't take it too seriously. So it was super fun to hang out with you and to meet you.
Yeah.
So I'm really honored to be here and chatting with you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I didn't get to know you right away because I got there late. So I felt bummed that everybody already knew you, and I was like, I didn't get to know you. I mean, but I did get to know you a little bit, and I get to know you now. But yeah.
Yep, I felt like we were all thrown into just this whirlwind of, oh, hi, hey. Yeah. But it was cool. I don't necessarily have something specific I want to talk about. It's just that, the metaphysical is an important topic and something that's just been a part of my life. And as a comedian and as an improviser, sort of what that looks like, the, sort of always feeling like you're tapping into something. And people's like, how did you know that? How did you know that when you're doing a scene? And they go, how could you both know? Or it feels like you had already planned it. Sort of that idea is always cool.
It's my favorite stuff, mixing comedy and metaphysical, because it's like what you said. Like when I was younger, I won some free throw contest that was ridiculous. I never knew why, and I always was like, I want that feeling, that zone feeling.
A free throw like on basketball.
Yeah. And so I always equate it to that same feeling when I have a good set or a good scene. Mm-hmm. It's the same feeling of just like sinking.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not me, that it's something else doing it through me. I'm in the moment allowing it. So I always want to figure out how to keep doing that. So that's what got me into the metaphysical stuff.
Yeah. It makes me think of flow, the idea of flow, right? That we get into that flow. And what does that feel like to be in that space that it is you and it is also not you? Because you're the vessel and you're like, it is through your unique set of atoms or whatever it is that makes you you. It is you, and yet it's not you. And that's always, I agree. Like that's the place, that's what I want to achieve always in my work.
Same. It's the best feeling ever, and it keeps it helps you work with your ego, because your ego, when we entertain it that way,
Mhm.
it doesn't want to go too low or too high. It
Yeah.
wants to stay right there, and when we're in alignment, it stays in alignment, and it's just beautiful all around.
Yeah. And
So
it sort of feels to me like there isn't, as I think about it, it's like, when are those moments in an improv show where you feel like just hooked in and connected? And so much of it isn't about ego. It's about what's happening between and within this
yeah,
space that you have created with these people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So how long have you been doing improv?
Well, both my parents are improvisers. Yeah.
No.
In
Stellar.
LA. So they started in LA and they were teachers out in LA for years, trained like Gary Shandling and a lot of early improvisers. And they worked with Keith Johnstone and Paul Sills. And so I grew up in improv world. Like that was where I lived. My first improv troupe, I was 12. We were the first like theater sports kids team that competed. We were called Just Kidding. Um, and so I've been improvising forever, and started doing it professionally in 2000. Well, did a TV show, an improvised TV show that was hardly improv, as we would have all said, because it's TV. And on TV, they work very hard to take any sort of surprise out of it. So it wasn't really, or spontaneity. So it wasn't really improv. But then I started working with Chicago City Limits in 2004 and toured with them around the country for about, I'd say 17 years. It was about 17 years. So I toured, and then it's the longest running off-Broadway improv show in New York City. And so I was with them on the main stage in New York, and then also toured with them, and in that time, like my parents moved to New York to take over for Paul Sills teaching improv at New Actors Workshop. So I was able to sort of be around like all these really incredible improvisers and improv teachers, Keith Johnstone and Paul and Gary Austin, and just sort of in this world of improvisation.
Wow.
So,
So cool. Wow. I interview in a past podcast, um, Clay Drinko, and
mhm.
he wrote a book all about how to use improv in life. But so, which I love, and I feel like you must have some great stuff too, like just like yes ending life, because when you know but things, you're not like, it's not only blocking the scene. Like if we were like, oh, I went to can oh, I went to Cannes, but blah blah blah. You're
Yeah.
negating the joy of it. But when you're like, oh, I
Mhm.
went to Cannes, it was so much fun, and blah blah blah. Like
Yeah.
then, yeah, when you say but or no, it just stops the flow of life. And
Yeah.
then if that, then what? If that, then what always helps me too. Like if
Mhm.
I went to, had a film at Cannes,
Yeah.
what else? Yes.
What's next? What's the
Yeah.
next thing? And yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, people always ask, what was it like being with parents who are improvisers? And I would say it was a lot of yes, and it was a lot of yes. And when it wasn't, sort of, my parents are also acting teachers, and constantly sort of, how can we open ourselves up to more? And my dad has his doctorate in theology, and my mom is a minister in California with like she studied with Rosalind Briere and then with David Spangler. They're all very good friends. So they're both very much on the spiritual path along with this artistic path, and they don't really see them as separate, as they're both the same. So as we sort of explore the ideas of improv and art, we're also exploring how we can open ourselves up as humans to what might be out there that we don't know, and also to each other as artists and collaborators and humans. So being in that family with us, there's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of bits. We have a lot of comedy bits we do just sort of randomly. And also there's a lot of encouraging to kind of expand. And when we feel that no coming on, how do you move through it? To have two parents that are coaching you on that and who are also doing that for themselves really does create a very fertile environment for kind of being the best person you can be. Certainly not there at all, but working on it. We're working on excellence. We're all working on it. We got ways to go.
I think you're there. You're pretty, I could tell by your energy. And just joy. Yeah. That's unbelievable. And I love that they're one and the same because I believe the same thing. I believe I don't follow a religion. I believe in prayer, but I believe that being our most authentic selves is the best prayer that we can do.
Yeah.
So like that's a form of prayer. Like I feel like nature's church, like, all that. So I love that, like life, it's not separate, it's all together. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool to have those parents. Did it ever annoy you? Like you wanted just regular parents?
Gosh, I don't think so. Probably if any time, it would be when they were being, embarrassing during those wonderful years when everything is embarrassing. But I don't think that was because they were artists. It's because I was, 14 and going, what is happening with my life? But I think for most of my life, it's been a joy to be in that family. And I've been able to recognize how really fortunate and blessed I am that those are the people that I'm on this journey with. Maybe like financially, there would be some times I was like, wow, it'd be really nice to have parents who have normal jobs and like, so I could go on that trip with my friends, but it'd be fine.
Right.
Because artists, it's not like they're raking in the dough as improvisers.
Right.
So, no, but it's fun.
Yeah. So cool, really cool. I'm very jealous. I had parents that were like, no, everything.
No to everything.
No, everything. They wouldn't even let me speak. It was awful.
Look at you now, see? But even that.
Right? And it's part of why I didn't have children because I was like, I will embarrass them constantly. Like I know. But now I think I would be okay. But growing up, I had friends that had children, or like when I was younger. And the little boys always loved me. The girls, they loved me when they were really little. And then when they got older, they were like, so like, why does she have to embarrass us everywhere we go?
I say, because it's a good lesson in being your own person and not worried about what anybody else thinks or is doing.
Yeah. But
my daughter, she's like, Kennedy, please stop dancing, Mom. She doesn't call me Kennedy. She calls me Mom. But my daughter is in a phase right now where she really is like, no, you can't. If I'm on stage, if she sees me in something, she loves it. That she's totally down with. But if we're in life and I'm being silly, or she's like, just don't dance, Mom. I know how to dance. Please don't dance. And I'll be like, okay, cool. It's fine. It's like, okay, stop. Or sometimes I'll say, do not stop my joy. This is my joy.
Yeah, it's your
okay. Joy. Yeah, sometimes I'm fine and I'm like, I'll stop. But then other times I'm like, this is how I express my joy.
Yeah, that's great. Dancing is everything. I like to call it abundance.
Abundance. I love that.
It's like rain dancing for rain.
Yeah.
Like let me dance like as much as I can. Right before the pandemic, I was at a party and something came over me and there were all these bands. I did stand up and then there were all these bands and my friends were there and I'm like, let's dance like our lives depend on it. And we just like went crazy. And then we went crazy dancing, all of us. And then we would stop and just laugh our asses off. It was the best feeling ever. Like just like dancing for our lives and then laughing so hard at like other people's reaction watching us. But for hours, we were just like, yeah, like just going crazy. And then like 2 weeks later, the pandemic happened. We were all like, thank God we did that. Like we really got like a lot of that.
all that time together. I also love dancing and moving and could do it for hours and hours and hours and have for joy, and did it trained dancing too. But right before the pandemic, I also, what were they called? The morning people. I'm going to forget what it's called because there's been, I feel like, decades of life happening between January of 2020 and now. But it's this group that does yoga. You go early in the morning and you do yoga and then you dance. And it was at the courthouse, I think, in downtown Atlanta. And all these people just joyously dancing together. And I went with my girlfriend and we had such an amazing time, and it was early and we're like, well, maybe we shouldn't go, that part of you that goes, but I could just sleep in bed. The yes and part, the adventure part said, yes, let's do it. So we went and danced for hours and hours. And then a month later we were in lockdown, and I thought how wonderful that we were able to have that time with all these people in this joyous space, because then it really was me just dancing in the living room to records,
right?
Getting the joy that way.
I love that we both had that experience.
Yeah, right beforehand. Totally.
And then we were both dancing. That's how we met, dancing in
Cannes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Cannes.
And that was so nice.
And I remember just seeing you. What happened is you just appeared. In my experience, I was out on the balcony looking out over the red carpet in the very fancy part of Cannes. I was like, oh, how fancy. And then I walk into the room and you're over in a corner dancing. And I'm like, who is that? She's amazing. Just in your own world. I didn't know who you were. It's like you had just sort of appeared. Poof, there she was. And I'd heard about you. And of course I'd seen the movie. Then, Teresa went, oh, well, that's Jackie. And I went, yeah, that makes total sense. Yes. So it was sort of you were this apparition of joyful dancing that I saw.
Yeah. Same with you. You were dancing too. I was just like, this girl.
In this beaded dress, all the beads kept falling off. Yolanda called me. It was like, I found about 100 of the beads from that dress.
Wow. Yeah. All your dresses. All your dresses were just stunning. And they looked vintage.
They were all vintage.
So
yeah.
No one told me ahead of time to come there with gowns to the floor. I didn't know. But I wouldn't have had them anyway. How did you know ahead of time and you just had them?
Yeah, I think it was at some point having gone to film festivals before and knowing like, okay, there are red carpets. And then I think Yolanda at some point went, they are real about the red carpets at Cannes. Like you can't show up, like people dress out for it. And I am always one to dress up. I love getting dressed up. Not always, but certainly when I'm able, I love being fancy. And after, as we said, like a year and a half of not being fancy, it was really nice to have that excuse. So my parents run a 2-year professional acting training program, and they have a huge costume shop. And the costume designer there, Brenda Schwab, is a miracle worker. So I just called her when we knew I was going, and I went, okay, Brenda, I need you to pull vintage dresses for me for red carpet looks. Let's try and get 5. And Brenda was super excited, and she went back into the racks and pulled a bunch of dresses. And the 3 that I ended up with, she altered them because I think people in the 70s and 60s didn't have rib cages. I was like, nothing fit my rib cage.
I mean, you're already so thin. So
yeah, it's not like there's anything else. It was just bone. And I went, oh, so she had to like pull a bit in them. But thank you. Those were between, that was Brenda and myself. And it's like, I don't want to buy new dresses. I don't have time to go find designers. And if I did designers, I would want it to be underrepresented designers. So if I can't do that, then let's go vintage and show that, we have enough beautiful things in the world that we don't have to keep making more. We can go back and get, and also I love vintage.
Yes, it looked stunning. Every night I was like, another dress, and I love them that they were all beautiful colors.
Yeah, I like color. I lived 30 years in New York, and for about 25 of those, it was pretty much all black, is the New York costume. But then I realized, oh, wait, I need to add some color into my life. There are things that are, the colors make me feel better when I wear them, and people gravitate towards them, and they say, oh, wow, those are so great. Those colors are so beautiful. Oh, thank you. So, they gravitate towards that as well. Well, thank you.
Yeah, really gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Well, I loved your sequin. I loved sitting there already there for Casablanca Beats. We got there, we did the carpet early, and I had just sat down and I looked up on the big screen, and it was you, and it was like your whole team there. And you and Teresa, you had those like sequin dresses, and you were dancing on the red carpet. And of course, I'm like trying with my phone going, oh, I gotta get pictures. I gotta get pictures of them. Oh my God, I sat on the carpet. And you two looked so incredible in those dresses. So how did you get that when you didn't even know?
We got them there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we got them there. They weren't that expensive. Yeah, so that was really fun getting them there. And that was so sweet that when somebody was like, Kennedy has our pictures, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I knew I loved her and I love her even more. Like, come on.
I wish I'd gotten more. It was like me. I felt like my mom. I was like, oh, how does my phone work? Oh no, I'm calling someone. That's not what I want to do. I need to take pictures. And I'm like trying to take a picture. Like my mask is falling off. I'm like, but it's them. I know those people. Like, fancy can people.
So fun, so fun. And then, we talked about it earlier, but I want to talk about it again. The Casablanca beat. Oh,
I love that movie so much. It was my favorite of all the ones that I saw.
Same. It might actually be my favorite movie of all time.
Of all time.
It moved me in a way that I haven't really been moved by a movie.
What was it that moved you? What was it about it?
He went past the line where I just love that he was there. He like, I don't want to give it away, but how his speech like at the end of just like, just keep going, just keep going. And I don't want to say it because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but there was one line specifically when he was saying it that just like gutted me and just was like, yeah, he's right. Like, just keep, I'll say, he was like, even if you're going to die, keep going. Keep going to be your most authentic self, even if and it was just like I was done. I was done. Like, and we're so lucky to not have it be that drastic. I mean, we can do whatever we want. And no, whatever we want. I mean, we take it for granted. And seeing that, it was just beautiful. And yeah, it just changed me. It made me want to. It woke something up in my brain to how important. I mean, I've always known how important art is, but an expression. But it just was like, I want to reach these people. I want to, it just opened it up even more and made it even more important. And what was so funny was I was just like on the red carpet, like glamour, and then and then seeing that movie, I was like, oh yeah, this is what it is, even more. So 10 times more than the glamour. So I'm so glad to have seen it right after the glamour.
Well, that those two things exist at the same time can sometimes be very disconcerting, right? It feels like they're separate from each other. And so to be in one space and have the other experience feels almost like a dissonance in like the self, at least for me, of like, oh, that's right. I don't like, this is all really fun and I enjoy this, but this is the work, like watching them like, this is why we do this.
Yeah.
It's for this, or at least that's what for me continues to inspire me to do it. When I was probably 15 or 16, it was definitely the red carpet. I'd be like, well, I want to show everyone how glamorous I am. And then as I got older and as I saw how art can change, how important art is, what compels me now, what inspires me now is that larger work. is using art to help facilitate change.
Right.
And Casablanca Beats made me think a lot about when I moved to New York, I got involved with a group called City Kids, which is this youth empowerment group that was really big in the 80s and 90s and is still going on now. And I'm still a part of them now, more in development side. But as a teenager, City Kids was really about multicultural bridge building. And we had a TV show, on ABC. But what it was really about was empowering youth to use their voice, because that's how they can affect change. And that's how they can have agency, is to be the ones, the mouthpiece for their issues. And so it was this group from all over New York City. And our artistic director, his name is Jamal Joseph, and he was a Black Panther, next Black Panther, and was just the fiercest human with the biggest heart, and really helped us to say, no, you are the change makers. And to be 15 and 16 and with this group of kids, and to hear someone tell me that I am the change maker. And for me to look at all these kids, and we were from everywhere. I mean, I was Upper West Side, privilege, and we had kids who were in gangs, who were getting out of gangs. We had kids from everywhere who came together in this basement on the Lower East Side and created art that then eventually turned into a TV show, right? So us learning how to use our voices helped sort of showed us that you can have a larger platform in what you do. So that to have Jamal be the one to kind of coach us through that every day, and sometimes terrifying, right? Saying he doesn't mess around. With this heart and with this push and this drive was the thing that helped to kind of expand my idea of what art could be, and also what my responsibility is as an artist to make change. That what I say has weight, what anyone says has weight, and especially if you have a platform, to use that and to be aware of what that can give you. And that's what Casablanca Beats made me think of. In that same way, is these like the sort of modern version of what we did at City Kids. And Hassan El-Jendi, who does the song at the end of my movie of Disconnected, he does outreach called Hip Hop 101, which is very similar to what they do in Casablanca Beats. So when I was watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, Haas, because we had just been talking about how do we take our platforms? How do we continue to create that social change, that the reaching of the youth? And so I watched it. I was like, oh, I wish Haas was here so he could see this and see what this movie is, because it's so similar to the work that Haas does. And when we were talking about coming, because he was supposed to come and couldn't, I had said, the ego part of it, I'm having a hard time with this film that really was made as a mouthpiece for the youth. For me to be going to Cannes and getting all dressed up to represent this film, it's hard for me in the way that we were just talking about of this disconnect between the two. And Haas said, yeah, okay, the ego, like that's ego, and that's good, but you use that platform to then reach that next level, to then reach out again. You take that visibility and you turn it into more of that social justice work, more of that connecting and reaching people. He said, and as long as you know that that's what you're doing and you're keeping yourself in check, then it's all good. And he was just kind of like that little angel in my ear while I was there, being like, okay, just keep it in check. Like, this is super fun and this is a part of it. And it is there as the yes and, right? As we were saying, like, yes, I will do this. And I'm going to take this and put it into, use it as the vehicle to get the outreach work done. So.
I love that. Can you tell me more about your film?
Sure. So the film is called Disconnected, and it was shot about a year ago in the middle of lockdown with a group of, I think we have 22 kids from all around the country. It was created with Atlanta Workshop Players, which is the company I work for down here in Atlanta that does youth outreach and also just work with kids. And it's an arts program for kids here in Atlanta. And they asked me to write a short film about COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement, and for their camp. So they do a movie camp every year. And we were going to do it remotely this year. Not this year, last year, because of the pandemic. So they said, we want you to write this. You're going to direct it. And also it has to be completely remote. And these are the 22 kids you have to use. So I had been during lockdown with my nibbling and my daughter here. And my nibbling at the time was 12. And then my daughter was 6, or had just turned 6. And watching the two of them go through COVID and through the lockdown. And I was teaching acting and improv online and talking with my kids. I had kids from age 10 to 17, and then the adults as well, talking about what their experiences were. And so when they asked me, I had all of these stories from these kids, and we'd do check-in and I'd say, hey, how are you today? And one of them would say, oh, I haven't left my house in 3 days. And we'd say, hey, have you left your house yet? And they're like, no, I haven't left my bedroom. Or, watching them break up with their boyfriends. So the COVID, I really felt like there was a lot of opportunity to share these stories from these kids. And at a time when people were really yelling a lot about how kids should be in school and kids should be doing this, without really listening to the kids, I didn't feel like there was a space for them. So I was writing that. And then they also wanted, because there were protests happening every day, they wanted the BLM storyline. We wanted to include that. I felt like you can't do a story about COVID and kids without including that. But also at that time, thankfully, was the conversation about who tells what stories and who has ownership over a story. And I felt, as a white woman in suburban Atlanta right now at this moment, that was not my story to tell. Like, just at that moment, maybe later there would be a shift, but right then it was very apparent to me that that was not my story. So I called an improviser, one of my improv friends up in New York, who I improvise with a ton, who trained with my mom and dad. His name is Malachi Nimmons. And I asked him if he would co-write it with me and write that storyline. And so he and I spent hours figuring out how to make it all work, how to make all these stories come together. And he went in and just wrote it in one night, the BLM storyline that kind of goes along with, I knew how we wanted it to end. And so he just sort of wrote that piece. So it was also a really wonderful opportunity to kind of make space and recognize, what are the stories that I tell? How do I help tell a story? How do I facilitate that? And then when do I step back and keep my mouth shut and just make the room for someone else's voice? And not only make the room, but make it for them. Like, not even, oh, here's a place at my table. It's like, you do your table and we're going to make sure that that is honored exactly how you see it. So anyway, that's not really talking about the movie. That's more the process of it. But the final product is a short film about COVID-19 and the BLM movement from the perspective of America's youth. And it was shot totally remotely. The kids did a lot of the filming themselves. And it's a tapestry of a bunch of storylines that sort of weave together and come to a final moment where all of their stories come together. But really, that's what it is.
It's beautiful. You're going on the festival circuit right now with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we can't see it yet.
Not yet. Maybe you can see it, Jackie, if you're really nice. The next festival that we're in that will be online is the Morehouse College Human Rights Film Festival. And that's in September.
That's great.
I'm super excited about that one.
Yeah.
Also because it's local.
Yeah.
It's a human rights festival. So it's in the festival circuit now. It started in December. And has been in
Really beautiful. So beautiful. And is there like a outreach program like that here in LA?
Like City Kids?
Yeah.
Yes, there are actually LA City Kids. Let me ask them where they're working right now, and I can
Get
get that for you.
involved.
Yeah, I mean the work is great, and where City Kids is in the process now is sort of uh, re-emerging because all of the alumni during COVID, we all started meeting virtually and
Oh,
would just like have these Friday night coalitions like we used to have. So all of these change makers, all these incredible artists who also do restorative justice, that do youth justice, that do every cause you could imagine all over the world. We all started just meeting on Zoom and talking. And so that's how I got reconnected with Hassan and got Hassan's song in the film. And we're now in the process of revamping it as alumni, coming back and joining forces again
I love it. I want
all
to get
over the country.
involved. I would love to get involved.
Yes, it is. The conversations. It is a place where I feel the most, when you say flow, like the most connected to that part of me that is the fierce fighter, that
Yeah.
is the social justice warrior, that is the artist as well. And because of City Kids, my degree is in performing and media arts in education for social change. So that is like what when I went back to work or went back to school after having at least a pretty successful career, I went, oh yeah, I don't need to learn how to act. I need to learn how to use this in a way that can
Oh,
directly help, or I can go with humility into a situation and know how to use art, not as a hammer to sort of bang something out, but as the soil, as the fertile soil to allow something to grow. Yeah.
gorgeous. Humility has such a bad rap because people hear humility and they think humiliation, and it's like, no, humility is the sexiest quality in the world.
Yeah.
It's just like not thinking you're better than anybody and not thinking you're worse than anybody. Just being right sized is so
Yeah.
beautiful.
And
Yes.
being who you are, like I
Yeah.
feel so much of it is being, we were talking about in the beginning, this vessel, this like open space. And when I'm in that facilitator space or director space or art space or improviser space, yeah, there's a part of me that's leading, right? And I have to know when to step in and kind of be the leader and when to step back and be the follower and when to just be the container and not even do anything, but just be the space and hold the space for whatever it is that is going to emerge. And that to me is what humility is. Humility is knowing when.
Ooh, I love that.
That's a
Yeah.
good definition. I don't know what I said. I'm glad we recorded it. So we
No, me
can,
too. That was really good.
thank you.
Wow, you were the container and the that was good. That was
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that's how I feel too, but I never heard it as concise like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard of Abraham Hicks.
Mm-mm.
uh what their teachings, they talk about how like when you're in flow with somebody else, you know like who has the most passion at that time. Like yes, that's how I like to collaborate with other people when I work with other people. Like if somebody feels really adamant about something and I'm just a little bit like, I think it should go this way, and they're like, no, like they're just passionate about like it's got to go that way. I'm like, go that way. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna try to push for my way when I'm not super passionate about it. But it's like whoever feels really passionate, like, no, can we please do it this way? Like that's
Yeah.
how I like to go with it. But I love
Yeah. You got to follow who's the leader at that moment. And the leader is following too, it's the other improv thing. It's like you follow the follower and yet also you're leading. When you get into a mirror and improv and you don't know who the leader or the follower is, that's the moment, right? Like that's where that magic happens. And if you can get into that space where you're both leading and both following, and then sometimes, oh, you're leading. Okay, cool. And then, oh, I'm leading now. Great. But ultimately, you want to get to that, for me, that space where you don't know who's leading and following. And as a director, I always try to really be in that space. Like I have a vision, I do my prep work, I know what sort of within the boundaries, right? I have these sort of like loose boundaries of this is what the vision is. And yet within that, that has so much flexibility and can manifest itself in so many different ways because you have collaborators that come in with you, and that instantly changes anything that you had in your mind. The minute you invite another energy in, it's going to change your energy. So if you are open to that and willing, I sort of say, okay, well, I have to put some of my ego aside and just say, yes, this is right. This is exactly as it should be within the space. And I definitely will say no if I'm like, no, that doesn't work, or that doesn't look as good, or we need to use a different lens for this. Then I will I will. But for the most part, I try to enter into it with that idea of we are creating something together, and I'm just the one who's directing it, but not deciding it all.
I love, beautiful, beautiful. And I love that we work with kids. Like I feel very much so that kids know stuff that we don't know because of my metaphysical love
Yeah.
of stuff. They were very, like, I feel like we're all with all that is all the time, but kids were enmeshed with it all in a different way because they just were born sooner. I don't know how to put it into words, but
Yeah. I mean, they haven't had so much of the world shaping and telling them what it
yeah,
should be. And they're not yet to that, haven't been beaten down to
yeah, exactly.
this is what you should do and you should be this way. And
Yeah,
being a parent of a very fierce little girl, it's been a real journey for my husband and I, and for me to remind myself always, like, she is her own human. And to hear her and to watch her kind of what was always there from the very beginning, that piece of her that was specifically her, to
yeah,
watch that sort of blossom and come into being. And there are times when both Al and I are like, oh my gosh, I would just like to be able to tell her to do something and she'll just do it. And then the other part of us goes, yeah, but that's not who she is. And that's not ultimately what we want for her to just sort of take down, lower the volume of who she is. We want her to discover who she is in
right.
this world. And I think kids, as they're younger, haven't yet had anyone turn down their volume and say, this is what you shouldn't do, or shh, use your inside voice. So I feel like they do have this connection to something bigger that then we as adults spend the rest of our lives trying to get back to,
Right.
if
Right.
we have had it beaten out of us in some way,
Right.
maybe not
Right.
literally, but
Right.
it's true. And it's sort of growing up with so many people who were exploring spirituality and metaphysical and the mysteries of the world and had connections. I was around adults who had sort of reconnected with those more mysterious places, or those parts, the metaphysical world. And so for me, it really wasn't even something different. It wasn't odd. I'm like, well, yeah, of course you can, your soul goes into a different plane, or yeah, sure. Yeah. She's psychic. She can read that person's mind. Yeah. We have auras. Like, for me, so many of those things, I mean, we were new age in the 80s in LA. So like, it was very much all of that. And so sort of growing up, I was like, well, yeah, there are a lot of things in this world that I don't know, that are mysteries, but I feel it. I feel that there's something bigger than me. I know that there's something bigger than me.
Right. I love that.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know how people survive not knowing there's something bigger than that.
I know.
Like, how can you, like, you're not making a flower grow. Well, I guess you can make a flower grow, but you're not in charge of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did a lot of work. I would host for the World Science Festival for years and years in New York, and talk with all these astrophysicists and the people who like built the Hubble telescope, and I mean, just really brilliant minds. And they would say, what is more miraculous than our universe? What is more miraculous than an atom? Then that there has to be something greater than us. Like you can't say it's just us because
Right.
there's so many miracles that are happening all the time.
Yes.
And it is, we all find different language for it. But ultimately what it is this mystery. I was like, the Big Bang, like that's an extraordinary moment that happened. And we don't know how it happened or why, but we always say gravity. I was like, and gravity is extraordinary. It's like this organizing force, or it's love, right? It could be any of those things.
Yeah. I always say I'm sick and tired of gravity. And I realized people were they were thinking I meant like aging, and I was like, oh no, I want to fly.
Hey, gravity.
Like, sometimes I just feel like
Not this gravity, not this one.
yeah, not that one. Like sometimes I just feel like I could just like keep walking up like invisible stairs and like fly
Yes.
when I get like in the zone.
Oh, I would love to do that too.
Me too. I feel like it's just a belief system that we can't, that we think we can't. I feel like we can, but I don't think in my lifetime we'll be doing that. But
We'll be figuring out how that our
Yeah.
relationship to gravity has not yet matured to the point where we can, use it in different ways.
Yeah. This teacher that I listened to said that there was a guy who really felt like he could fly. And the teacher that I listened to said that we can all fly. And but we don't think we can, so we can't. And he said there's one guy really felt like he could fly, and the reason he couldn't was because he felt like he was the only one. He was the one that could fly and nobody else could. If he had that belief and believed that everybody could fly just the same, then he could have flown because his belief was so strong. Or
Yeah.
I can say I believe I can fly, but I can't. But that's why I'm sick of gravity. I'm sick and tired of believing in this. I mean, there is gravity, but I feel like
It does exist, but what its rules are always changing too. Like we're always discovering.
right.
Even science, science changes, it morphs. When you think of quantum physics, it's like that in and of itself opens up a whole other realm of possibility of what reality is. And that is,
Yeah.
rooted in the smallest pieces of science of study. So
Yeah.
gravity.
I'm trying to bring it on stage, and I like blame different people in the audience for my not being able to fly.
Because you don't believe. Because
Yeah.
you believe in gravity. It's your
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah. Blame them. So what was it like being on City Kids when you were on TV when you were a kid? Like how beautiful. It's so interesting that my movie was about child stars, and you were a child star, but I feel like it's imperative if you're a child star to have parents that are, I feel like the parents should go through a psychological test before they allow their kids to be on
Yeah.
TV. And I feel like you're blessed with great parents to not let it go to your head and not
Yeah.
like start seeing you as like a cash,
Money maker for it.
right.
Yeah. I mean, both my sister and I were working when we were young in LA. And my mom and dad and our friends were also child stars. And I was watching them get into addiction issues, having really difficult times at 7, 8, 9, just having very difficult times navigating childhood and who they could trust. And my parents always said, if you don't want to do it, if you say no, you don't have to do it. And so we would say no, and they'd say, okay, you don't need to do it. And City Kids, luckily, I was not one of the big stars. I was one of the dancers. I was a very good hip hop dancer when I was a teenager. So I did a lot of hip hop and was one of the core dancers. So I was in all the episodes, but wasn't one of the 6 main people, which I think at the time there's a part of me that was like, I want to do that. But now in hindsight, I was like, nah, I got to do the very cool thing where I got to be there and so Dule Hill, he was one of the stars of it. Dash Mihawk was in it. Donald Faison. I mean, a lot of people who have now gone on to have great careers, and all of them. Donald Faison's mom is an agent. Was really savvy in the business and is very, very good at sort of helping. And we all had Jamal and the whole City Kids team that were going, this is only a piece of the work. And we are grateful for this, but this is not the end. And I think having that as well, sort of in our minds, I mean, let's face it, we all were like, I want to be this. There was definitely ego, and we were 15, 16, 17 and kind of in these spaces. And, some of the kids talk about showing up and being at Mick Jagger's birthday party with, Keith Haring and going, wait, how did I end up here? Right. Like we would find ourselves in these very exciting spaces in New York. And yet there was always the person in the back of our head, the person on Saturday morning who said, yeah, that's great. That's really wonderful. This is the work.
I love it. How to
And-
get that's the most beautiful thing on the planet, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think it kept me from being, not kept me. I realized young that being a huge star was not what I wanted. And so that was sort of the piece of it too, of sort of saying, oh, wait, you can have a career, you can do your work, and it doesn't have to be celebrity.
Right. Because then
you don't.
Never alone. Like, and you never know.
Yeah. No, your world is not your own.
It's not your own. What was I going to say? So so I watched your reels.
Oh,
and
you did some homework.
It's so fun to watch you be really direct in those parts.
Mm-hmm.
You're really good at it.
Thank
it must
you.
be really fun doing it.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Are you talking like Odd Mom Out, all the comedy stuff? Yeah. That character, Marissa.
Yeah.
She's my alter ego. She is my dark side.
I love that.
And I think that
playing it,
yeah, it is. It is really fun. And I started doing that character. Davis was 8 months old, so I was still nursing. It was insane, and in New York, and it was when I read the character, I said, oh my gosh, I can play her. I know her, not only because I know those women on the Upper East Side, but I know that part of me that is her. And it's the part that I really try to keep in check and try to funnel towards being like a fierce advocate and a warrior for people. But also I know what that is. And that temper, definitely I have it. So to be able to put all of that into this character and have it be this funny sort of foil for Jill. And most of it was improvised. Once they found out that I could improvise, the showrunners would just say, go for it, improvise. And I would go off and do something.
Heaven.
Yeah, she was great. Jill said she's the kind of mean person you love to hate. Like you love her and you hate her. And that's kind of the place that I like to be in those characters.
Yeah.
You don't like her, but you're.
Yeah. It was a tenacity. Like that tenacity energy is just like so addictive. Yeah.
And it's definitely a part of me. In fact, when we were meeting for Cannes, it was more of my direct part that was in those Zoom meetings because we're preparing, and I call it my producer hat. It was really sort of, okay, what do we need to do? And I would spearhead things, and I always knew what, would be Googling and giving information to people. And Diana said, just like, I like that. I like her. And I also like this one who showed up at Cannes, because they're two very different people. That there was this organized, like very straightforward and focused. And then there's the one who will go kooky and do whatever, the improviser. And I think you need both. You need to be able to have that focused part, and then also the part that can just be out there and going with the flow of it.
It took me a long time to want the other part.
The crazy part or the focus part?
I always loved the crazy. I've been crazy since I was little, but the adult part was like pulling teeth trying to get it.
I mean, I don't know what it looks like for every person. That adult part is very different. So,
I had to mimic other people to get it, but I'm getting it more and more. It's becoming more natural. But yeah, it's a long story. It's because of my parents.
That wouldn't let you speak. So, it's
Yeah,
hard for that.
yeah. So I just wanted to have fun all the time. Fun was my priority for a very long time.
Hmm, that
Uh,
makes sense.
so I was glad that I watched your reel all the way to the end because when I got to the cousins,
Cooter cousins.
older cousins, I was like, ah, it's so good.
It's a whole show. It's a TV series.
I'm watching the whole thing. Where can I see it?
Well, so it's funny that you say that because my writing partner, Kimmy Gatewood, just won an Emmy. Yay. She's on Glow. I was telling Teresa that the two of you remind me of Kimmy and me. There is something about like when I watched the two of you on Honey and Clover, I was like, this is like Kimmy and me. This is Cooter Cousins. Like it's that same idea of just like two smart women just doing ridiculous things and having a message underneath it, right?
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
friendship and trying to go get out of the situation you're in. Like, how do you shift that? And so we made that 12 years ago. I'd say we shot it 12 years ago. We pitched it. People were like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And so Kimmy and I went and like had careers, did our things. And a couple years ago, right before the pandemic, I went, what do you think about next song? Let's revisit that. So there's a pilot, like we have the pilot episode of it. And both of us now, like people who've been seeing it, the response to it has been so different than what it was then back, because it's been 12 years of comedy that has changed what people think comedy is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was before Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and sort of, I mean, they were there. It wasn't like they didn't, they were working, but 30 Rock hadn't yet become what it is, Parks and Rec. And people were like, I don't get this. Not that I would say that next song off her new album is like 30 Rock, just that to have more female voices in comedy.
Right.
And what that looks like. And coming now to this place where people are looking for uplifting comedy. They're looking for this idea of these sort of, a bit less sarcastic, and I love sarcastic humor, but this is not that. So I love that you love it. And the people that we've shown it to have just responded so positively to it in a way that has been reaffirming to the two of us that we're like, in fact, Kimmy was just here shooting something a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I think this has a life now. And I went, I think it does too. I think it's time. I think now is the time for this, not when we made it 12 years ago, but now.
Yeah, I love it.
I'll send you the whole thing. I'll send you the pilot.
It's better than anything on TV. I think it's better than 30 Rock.
My dad produced it. My mom directed it.
Wow.
The pilot.
Do you know how to play the banjo?
I know how to play a little.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not as good. That's my dad playing it. Secret. That's my dad playing it on the recording, on the final thing, on the actual show. It's my dad.
So cool. Did you ever read Steve Martin's book?
Yes.
Standing Up.
Which one? Born Standing Up.
Yeah. He says we always use everything. Like, so I love the stories like that where it comes back.
Yeah. And we both went, we were so bummed because she was out in LA and I was in New York, and our lawyer, our entertainment lawyer, most incredible man, Mark Lick, who has since passed, was such an advocate of it, and he loved it.
Wow.
And he was like, I don't know why people are not responding to it. And Kimmy would show it to people and they're like, yeah, I just don't get it. And so we went, yes. I know, right? And we were just like, what can you not get? They're called the Cooter Cousins. They love Dolly Parton. Like, what is not to get? They're in the middle of the South. But, you write something, and sometimes, they always say patience. The time comes for each thing when it's supposed to be there. And if you can hold it till it's time.
Yeah, I feel like you could
find it
now, and I want you to get it
done.
Yeah, we need it.
Let's do it. Funny. You and me, let's get Honey and Clover and the Cooter Cousins. Let's get them out there, because I love Honey and Clover so much. Just love it.
Thank you.
It's so funny.
I was dying. I was just like, I love how you put it, like bonus. I was like, what's
Right.
this gonna be? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. It was heaven. But I felt like Strangers with Candy was ahead of its
Mhm.
time too. Like people
Yes.
like, but I'm sorry. I mean, Amy Sedaris is my favorite, but I like Coda. I mean, I just saw the clip of Coda Cousins, but I like it even more.
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch much of anything with kids around these
Yeah.
days. I don't watch anything, but Strangers, I was in the last funny trivia. I was in the last episode of Strangers with Candy. I have Steve Colbert's lamp up in our bedroom because they were selling everything that was in the set. And I was like, I want this weird golfing lamp. So that's upstairs in our bedroom. But I was a cheerleader during that last episode and like made out with my friend Troy, who was a football player in it, a recurring role, like as the whole place is burning down and like at the last episode of that show. I didn't really fully realize how cool it was that I was there with, you know, those particular humans and Amy Sedaris being
Super cool.
such a brilliant, I love her.
Me too, same. And David, the Sedaris.
I could hear him tell stories all day.
Me too. Heaven. Yeah, they both inspire me so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been an hour. I could talk to you.
What?
I'm gonna have to have you on again if you don't mind.
I would love to. I'll come and talk to you anytime, Jackie, either on live stream or just sitting and,
Yeah, let me know if you come to LA or
I'm there all the time for various reasons. I have tons of family out there.
All right, let's get together.
Let's do it. Well, we have 2 projects we have to do Cooter Cousins and Honey and Clover. We'll join forces to get them sold.
Yeah, I wonder if we can mash them together.
We could do a mashup episode.
Yeah, because remember, I mean, I kind of love that idea because do you remember Tracy Ullman and the Simpsons?
Yes.
Like they were a match.
Yes.
It'd be kind of funny to match us. I don't know. I didn't even think of that when I was just like in heaven. You guys are so funny.
Oh, thank you. And we met doing improv. We met at Chicago City Limits and then went, hey, wait a minute. We have a really good chemistry. We're really kooky. Let's write something.
Yeah, it's so fun.
And that's what came. And now we're just like really good friends. We both have kids the same age. And we're like, well, cool. Now we're at this part in our life. Now we're here on the other side, sort of careers moving along and being successful. And we said, let's do Cooter Cousins again.
I'm psyched.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want? Where can everybody find you?
Where can they find me? I'm not going to give my address out, Jackie, not on a live stream.
It was a stipulation and you signed.
No, I'm sorry. I can't give you, I can give, okay. It's 1 through 3. No, I'm just kidding. You can find me. You can always find me. Oh, this is interesting because you can find me on social media on the days that I decide that I want to participate in social media. And that would be at Kennedy Knowles on Instagram or Facebook. And my website, you can always email me there, and that's kennedyknowles.com. And then citykids.com. You can check out what we're doing there.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. All those places. Or you can find me at my house if you can figure out where it is.
Sign that you would tell everybody.
Yeah, I'll you know what? I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it down below. So subscribe and like, and then you can also get my address to come and hang out in my basement, which I invited you to come to my basement, which is where I am right now. So.
Oh, wow. Basement. I live in one room. No, well, a 1 bedroom.
No, that's the difference between suburbs of Atlanta and LA.
I love Atlanta.
Probably costs the same, our house and your.
Probably.
Atlanta's cool. It's definitely growing.
It's definitely growing for.
Got a good vibe.
It's pretty rad.
And also for like political, like social justice work. It's always been, but it really right now is such a epicenter of a lot of stuff. So it feels like where things are.
Part of something. I love that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Oh, this was such a joy.
Such a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. letting me chat for an hour, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Should I leave the meeting? What do we do now? There it is. Okay.
I love you even more now.
Oh my gosh, you're my favorite.
You're my favorite. I can't believe all the City Kids stuff and everything. I want to get involved. I love it.
Yeah, I also do work. I didn't talk about it, but do work with in Africa, in Lesotho. We do applied theater. So, and I was in Doha doing work a lot like Casablanca Beats. So I've been in a lot of places around the world doing.
If you ever need somebody, I would love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, things are happening here in Atlanta, so I'll always give you.
That's great. That's great. I go speak in jails.
Huh? You go speak it. So you do like restorative justice type stuff? You speak in jails?
I really, actually, full disclosure, I'm sober, and I talk about sobriety in jails.
That is great.
Yeah, but it's so rewarding. Like I'll do something like really cool here, like entertainment wise, but when I walk out of the jail, I'm like every cell is just like that. Like I feel like on fire with like joy. Like that's my happiness. And people don't understand it. They're like, okay, Jackie. But I feel like you get it. I feel like you get it. So I love meeting somebody else that gets it.
Oh yeah. I mean, when we went to Africa, I went just with school. When I went back to school, one of the programs that you could do was to go to Africa and do applied theater in Lesotho. And when I was there, I had the moment of, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's the best.
Like this is where I feel that, and on stage improvising when the improv is like in flow. If it's not in flow, it's the last place I want to be is there. But when it's in flow, it is like, and more it's in flow. As I get older and older, I find myself in flow more, no matter who. Like I can make anything work with that. I can make anything work. That